Hey everybody, this is Brad Dyke. How are you doing? This is my second video go around, and it's to talk about logic and the nature of our environments, and looking at miniaturization and equating value to doing so. And I've got big, I got small, I got everything in the middle. Maybe I need to step away from the big stuff and go to the little stuff, or go from the little stuff and go to the big stuff. This video is to talk to that. Now, what do I really mean specifically by that? Well, let's just say you're a PC guy or a girl, and you got your motherboards and your behemoths, or I got this server from my lab, or I got some surplus gear, and I've built out something, and I got it in this confounded configuration, so on and so on and so on. And you think, all right, now I want to do something. This is expensive. It's bulky. It's breaking. I can't get the parts for it. So you want to do something small. Well, I think that's cool. Go for it. Why? Why do I say that? Well, because as you know, over here, my racks are filled full of gear. I got 1Us, I got 2Us, I got a KVM switch, I got 10 gig, I got 1 gig, I've got scaling, I have ALB, I've got disk arrays, I've got capacities for HPs and NetApps, EMCs, Dells, HPs, the 6170 series. I got a lot of stuff here. And on the bottom, I have compute power, two of them. I got a quad stack and I've got a dually stack down on the bottom, which is my son's. And all in all, it's huge, right? This is actually the most uncommon configuration you'll have out there. Most people have a half rack. Well, they'll have one rack that's 6 foot tall. One or two, I think, have full blown 7-footers, 72Us. But the point is, you would say, okay, well, now that I've built this thing, I can power it off. Maybe I can do it all on a little tiny run box, like, something small, right? Maybe I can make a Proxmox engine here, and I can do all my Kubernetes and Docker work and so on. But hey, let's go even smaller. Let's create some Raspberry Pi boxes here and really get tiny. And I think that's a really cool idea. I really do, because I've done it all. That's right. You see, if you look back at that rack again, let me turn it here again for you. I have it all there. Let's see, that should be good enough. Okay, so now what I'll do is I'll point it out. Right here, my little pies, right here. Up here are my micro PCs. I've got 1Us here for Microdynes, for our Proxmox modules. I've got TrueNAS environment there. I've got a Periover down here. And I have the 2U set computational ones, which are the HP DL380 9th generation. And I got another 380 down there, which is the one with the standard hard drive size capacity. And what I've got here is an entourage, a smorgasbord of sorts, of everything. So if you want to go and get yourself a couple of these boxes, a couple of i7s, and set them up as a Proxmox and start doing all your virtualizations and so on and so on and so on, rock and roll. Go for it. Do it. Throw everything else out the door, start over, whatever you want to do. I don't see any issues with that whatsoever. For those of you that need to touch the world of everything, like myself, I have it all here. I have the quad header. That thing is a mother, let me tell you. When it processes stuff, it just gobbles it up. And, you could use it for Proxmox, but I wouldn't. I use it for calculation. Because there are values in these environments. And one of those values is that when you have a processor stack, and there are actual processors out there designed specifically to calculate numerical value, not be multi-core platforms that you would use for like Proxmoxing or something like that. I I have a combination of the two of those because with a number cruncher and I've got a database behind it, it really rocks. I mean, it just sucks it up and spits it out and says done. You know, it's like, oh, that's sweet. But again, though, when you've got the multi-cores, you can Proxmox, and that gives you an ability to be able to really push your threshold. Now I've done everything from storage, cryptology to mining, and I've done most of the environments out there. I haven't done a Beowulf in a long time. That's not the greatest thing out there, but it does work. It's just not great. And overall, though, this is a very good setup. And when you want to pull the trigger and say, I'm going to run a pfSense firewall, I'm going to have my infrastructure and everything in my 1 or 2 boxes set. I would recommend 2 boxes at a minimum with a failed over state in play, because when you run pfSense on your Proxmox, you're really cutting your knees off. So it's great to experiment and play with, say, oh yeah, I could do it, but not the greatest idea in the world. And of course, you need 2 NICs to do that successfully. But with that being said, I think it's a really great idea that people learn to do both. I think that inevitably the firepower of hardware that is fully pathed out as dual 64 pathways and so on has an extremely good value. But a micro-sized style board, which uses a single 64 bus split by 2, and it does work too, and it's a fairly efficient, not quite as efficient as an SCP board, but it's efficient enough to do what you want to do. The last thing that you ought to consider also is if you're looking at doing yourself a NAS platform, my suggestion is don't. What I would suggest you to do is look at it slightly different. Now, there are 2 ways you can do this. One, you can use a platform called TrueNAS, and you can use the plugins to run virtual machines, which means primarily you are a storage device, and then secondly, you can VM. It's pretty nice, but only if you have the hardware truly for it. Now, a Dell R720 or 730DX is perfect for it. And I have 2 brand new ones I've just built from scratch, which will be going in to replace my old 720DX that I've got down there now. But it's got 24 1 terabyte SSD drive. 24 2 terabyte SSD drives down there on a SAS mini channel, and I'm not doing it to try to get performance because you can't, not from a SAS chassis environment. But I have maximized the SAS bandwidth. So that and the fact that I'm underdrived, because these controllers are designed to handle 4 or 5 or 6 shelves of drives, and I kept it strictly at 24 drives. Because the Dell DX730 has 24 of its own drives locally on its own RAID controller configuration, which is sweet. Throw 2 NVMe drives in that for the OS boot process, nothing more than 120 gigs, and you've got a blisteringly fast, powerful TrueNAS head. But there's a problem with the plugin tool. It's not very great. Matter of fact, none of them are. So running a NAS OS as your top OS and then doing VMs below it has a price. And I don't recommend that really if you really want to optimize your Docker model environments for Kubernetes and so on and so on. My suggestion at that point in stage is to build yourself a Proxmox environment, and then let Proxmox with Kubernetes management handle the Docker environments. And then what you do is you reach out to your TrueNAS environment, and it becomes your EFS/NFS disk space capacity. I say EFS because some of you new guys and gals never heard of the term new NFS, but really that's what EFS is. It's AWS's version of NFS, Elastic File System. And or elastic file storage is another term for it. All it basically, what they're trying to tell you is that with what's called an open-ended NAS environment with NFS, you can have an indefinite size increasable volume. Hence elastic. In other words, it expands on demand. That's been around for a long time. EFS is just a rebrand from AWS to make it look new again. But for all of us old geeks and Greeks and tech guys and gals, we know what it really is. It's NFS. With that being said, though, just like S3 is, basically, what we call shared storage or HTTP style shared storage, push and pull storage, shared stores. Same as with the EFS as NFS. So with that environment here, you still need to have that flexibility. And can you make a NAS? Well, you can make a NAS with a Raspberry Pi. That's easy. Matter of fact, if you've got all the components and the support capacity, you can use a PCIe Open Bus and a daughter card that has, NVMe RAM on it, or a couple of hard drives, and you got yourself a NAS. And you don't even have a motherboard. You're just using a daughter card instead of a motherboard. There are a lot of functionalities at which you can do out there. The cool thing is that you're doing it. So I give you a thumbs up. Keep doing it. There's nothing wrong with you going back to big hardware and back and forth and so on like I've done for God knows how many years. But the truth of the reality is it's fun, to be truthful. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this little 10-minute video. It was to talk to the nature of what's starting to take trend here. And we're starting to realize how optimal that software can finally be. And that it gives you the ability of catching up with hardware, which is, unfortunately, for a long time, hardware has been way ahead of software. That's why so much backdated equipment works well today. So don't forget that. You never know what you can do until you try it. Well, this is Brad Dyke signing off. God bless. Have a great weekend. Take care.